We would like to welcome everyone to our presentation on pedagogical leadership. In our presentation, we will be defining what pedagogical leadership is, its strengths, challenges that can arise, as well as implementation. Pedagogical leadership can also be known as instructional, learning-centered, educational, or curriculum leadership. It doesn't matter what you call it, but you must know that pedagogical leadership emphasizes that leaders should not be solely responsible for goal setting. Allowing stakeholders to be involved in the educational process encourages parents, students, and the community to invest in the learning process. Pedagogical leadership encourages an educational environment where all the major stakeholders are involved in order to create a culture that encourages education and learning. Leadership is not placed solely on the administrator, but given to teachers as well, so that they feel ownership of any goals that have been set. The role of an administrator is to establish a clear mission statement and goals for the school to achieve. Then they must encourage all the stakeholders involved to work towards this vision. This requires teamwork from all those involved, whether it be staff attending professional development that will help to achieve these goals, or increasing communication with parents and getting them involved in their child's education. Pedagogical leadership fits with the vision and expectations coming from the province. Pedagogical leadership will allow leaders to develop the educational communities that the province is calling them to build, which require collaboration, networking, and broadening the scope of education to meet an uncertain future. This framework was the result of a consultative process between the confines of the school and the teacher-student relationship. It is beyond academic excellence and therefore consistent with the principles of pedagogical leadership. Therefore, the proposed framework includes directions for building an inclusive educational system that meets the needs of all students. Instructional leadership with a pedagogical focus will address needs of our educational future. Technology and access to technology has created a need to help students manage information and also a need to create knowledge beyond the confines of a program of studies. Leaders and educators need to develop knowledge of their educational circumstances to improve learning. The pedagogical leader will support increased relevance to learning. A broad focus on learning will add personal and local context to education and instruction. Relevance should increase. Mail and Pelalogo describe our current situation as being so preoccupied with performance and with bureaucratic demands of education as an institution that we have neglected the personal side of education. Effective networks and procedures for creating and understanding new knowledge will place staff and students in a favorable position to embrace an uncertain future in all aspects of their lives. As defined outcomes become less relevant due to the rapid accumulation of information, managing, organizing, and synthesizing information and adapting seem to become new curriculum outcomes. A challenge that can arise in the diversity and complexity of stakeholders calls for a departure from linear and hierarchical processes in learning. Multiple sources of information, shared resources through several ministries, and dependence on non-governmental agencies for education resources will require a departure from this model. Another challenge created by pedagogical leadership is that changes to curriculum may mean that educational outcomes and assessment may be more varied, with more endpoints. Procedures and effective pathways may take priority over specific artifacts or pieces of specific knowledge. The inevitable challenge is the time required for the pedagogical leader to effectively take up this role. Is there an expectation that the role of the leader will become an additional task for an individual to squeeze into an already hectic role? Or will sufficient time be granted for this individual to both reflect on, create opportunities to enact, and develop the necessary skills to be a pedagogical leader? There is a risk that the role of the pedagogical leader becomes an isolated and too often turned-to role when educators require support or are in crisis. We propose that the role of the pedagogical leader is not the savior of all curriculum issues. Rather, the role may act as a critical friend to educators, an individual who promotes intellectual stimulation and challenges the norms of practice. New pedagogical leaders need to know what inspires other people. Four things that seem to stand out when we look at those who inspire us are: be yourself, engage in activities you care about, do your best, and care about the people in your life. When there is inspiration in your own life, you will be able to instill inspiration in others. Developing a shared vision may be the single most important task for a pedagogical leader. Developing shared perspectives on both the vision and the process for enacting it are indispensable for success. Good communication is essential, especially when sharing this vision with major stakeholders. A key to the implementation of pedagogical leadership is in the Alberta School Leadership Framework's professional practice competencies. Specifically, implementing PL is related to the following competencies, such as fostering effective relationships, embodying visionary leadership, leading a learning community, providing instructional leadership, and developing and facilitating leadership. In order to embed pedagogical leadership into professional practice in a school, the concept of pedagogical leadership must be embedded into professional development. This looks like distributive leadership to include best practice presentation in PD. This also looks like PD that is influenced by and even led by teachers who have bought into the concept of pedagogical leadership. In order for pedagogical leadership to remain successful, it must have buy-in. In order to achieve buy-in, it must be a product of collaboration amongst all educators within the school building, as well as include parents and students within the school community. Pedagogical leadership, a journey in learning that is directed, not channeled. It includes and connects, although the journey may be different for the participants. It is dynamic and is about the journey as much as the destination. There are many organizational, temporal, and personal challenges to embarking on this style of instructional leadership. Based on our uncertainty of the future, it seems worth pursuing.